Hello everyone. In the series of Principles of Agronomy by Reddy and Reddy, this is the third chapter, that is Influence of Climate on Crops. So before beginning, let's have a quick look on a motivational quote, that is, do something today that your future self will thank you for. This means that you must do something today that will make your future and will thank you tomorrow. So work hard continuously without thinking about the failure. So let's begin with the chapter. See, first of all, there is uh, a very important statement that is given over here itself, that more than 50% of the variation in yield of a crop is due to the various climatic differences. So you must remember that the variation can be more than 50% because of the climatic differences, that it may be due to temperature variation or humidity. Different kinds of climatic factors may influence the yield by more than 50%. Now, solar radiation, the most important part. See, solar energy provides the light that is required for seed germination and various other parts. Also remember that sun is the ultimate source of energy. Now, these are very important points: photosynthetic effect, photoperiodic effect, and thermal effect. See, when solar radiation has an effect on photosynthesis, it is known as photosynthetic effect. When it has an effect on photoperiod of a plant, that is long day, short day, it is known as photoperiodic effect. And when it has a heating effect, that is thermal effect, it is known as thermal effect of solar radiation. Now this is a very important statement, that about 28% of the energy in terms of solar radiation is used in photosynthesis. Means out of the total solar radiation, about 28% is used in photosynthesis. And if we talk of the photoperiodic effect, more than solar radiation plays an important role in regulating and controlling of the growth and development. This everyone knows. Other important thing is the thermal effect. This is very important statement, that more than 70% of the solar radiation absorbed by plant is converted into heat. These two statements are very important. First is that the photosynthetic effect of the solar radiation is about 28% in terms of energy, and the other important statement is that more than 70% of the solar radiation is absorbed by plants and converted into heat. Many a times it is very confusing and students remember it in an interchangeable manner. Means if a question is being asked that dash percent of solar radiation is absorbed by plant is converted into heat, and there are both options given, 28 and 70, so students generally confuse between them because these are the statements that are very confusing. So remember them, that if it is about heat, plant, and that is absorbed by plant and converted into heat, it is 70%, and the portion that is being utilized for photosynthesis, it is 28%. Now other important thing is that solar radiation has also influence of nutrient management disturbance. This is a very basic statement. Now this 5 to 6 lines, these are very important lines. See, the first important line is that radiation up to 0.25 micrometer, that is ultraviolet radiation, is harmful to most of the plants. All right. The other important thing is that radiation range from 0.30 to 0.55 micrometer has photoperiodic effect. It means radiation from this zone, that is near infrared region, sorry, not near infrared, it would be in between ultraviolet to photosynthetically active radiation. This range of radiation has mainly photoperiodic effect, that is long day, short day plant that we classify. This radiation has a greater role to play in that. After that, this is, everyone knows that 0.4 to 7 micrometer is most effective in terms of photosynthesis. See, these units are given in micrometer. When you will convert it into other units, for example, you say angstrom or nanometer, simply it is 0.225 into 10 power minus 6. It would be like, for example, if this is given like 0.40 to 0.7 micrometer, if you convert it into a nanometer, it will be 400 to 700 nanometer. Likewise, in case of angstrom, it would be about 4000 to 7000 angstrom. Now other important statement is that above 0.74 micrometer, the radiation has practically no effect on photosynthesis. Means photosynthetically active radiation is between 0.4 to 0.7, and above 0.74 it has no effect on photosynthesis. It is mainly a thermal effect. This above 0.7, this is near infrared, and it has a basic influence on seed germination and dormancy of the seeds. This is very important line. And you also might have read in weed management that there are two kinds of radiation. One is near infrared and one is far red. So one has influence on far red light leads to dormancy and near red leads to they promote growth or germination. Uh, far red light has inhibitory effect, that means it causes dormancy, while near red light has promoting effect, it promotes germination and growth of the plant or seeds. Now this is basically a tabular form of what has been mentioned over here itself. So you can see the spectral region, that is the range of frequency of wavelength from which to which the ultraviolet would range in photosynthetic reactive radiation, then near infrared, then long wave radiation. These are the various ranges that are being given. The other important part, if you see observe over here, is that out of the majority of the solar radiation reaching on earth, majority of which is near infrared region. See, 50 to 80% is near infrared. It is not photosynthetically active radiation. All right. Also, the important part is that it has not been mentioned over here. There was a question in 2020 JRF examination that most of the solar radiation received by Earth is in the wavelength of. So options were like 0.5 micrometer, 0.47 micrometer, and options were 0.9 micrometer and 1 micrometer. So the answer was 0.47 micrometer. Now the photosynthetic effect. We have already discussed that about this. Above 0.74 micrometer, radiation has no effect on photosynthesis, and 0.4 to 0.7 micrometer has photosynthetic effect. This you can skip over here. The other part is the enzymes. This is very basic thing, that if light intensity would increase, the activity of enzymes would also increase, and if there is a lower light intensity, then it would lead to decrease of the activity of these enzymes. Now in case of pigmentation, this is an important line, that chlorophyll formation is promoted in the light region of 0.300 to 0.388 micrometer. This is very important statement. The other important statement is that red light accelerates the synthesis of plastic pigment. It can be asked in this manner, that which of the following light or which of the following it can also be asked in the form of wavelength of red light, or directly it would be asked which color. So it would be asked that plastic pigments in leaves and biogenesis of laminar structure is increased by which of the following. Options would be like red or violet, green, yellow. So the answer would be red. Now leaf characteristics. This is very basic thing, that if there would be very high light intensity, it would lead to decrease in the surface area, except it would increase the leaf thickness. This is important, that it would increase the leaf thickness, while the surface area, as the leaf will shrink, so it will decrease the surface area but increase the leaf thickness, and number of mesophyll cells per unit area would also increase. See, this would be per unit area increase in mesophyll cells. Now carbon dioxide intake is very high in leaves compared to that of, this is not important. After that, leaf exposure. This is very important line, that blue light at very low intensity, that intensity is also given that 2 volts per centimeter square per second, it causes inclination of wheat leaves. This is very specific, that in case of wheat, blue light at very low intensity causes inclination. This is very important part. And the other important part is that a rosette and prostrate growth of winter wheat is observed in light intensity of 750 kilolux per hectare per day. These two important statements are given over here. First is that blue light at a lower light intensity causes inclination. Other is that rosette and prostrate growth of wheat is observed at light intensity of 350 kilolux per hectare per day. Now in terms of growth, how light has influence on this. See, light interception increases with increase in leaf area index. See the leaf area index. What is leaf area index? We'll basically discuss in chapter number 4 what is leaf area index. This is the extension coefficient formula, that is I is equal to I naught E minus K LAI. Here K is extension coefficient, LAI is that leaf area index. I and I naught is the I stands for the light intensity at a particular point, and I naught refers to light intensity on the top of the canopy. Always light at the top of the canopy will be higher compared to light at a particular point. So if you want to determine the light intercepted by a plant at a particular point, it can be calculated through I is equal to I naught E minus K LAI using this formula. In terms of log, it can also be written as log I is equal to log I naught minus K divided by LAI. See, this table is very important. The authority is not important, you can skip this. The important part is you need to remember is the extension coefficient of various crops. Like for rice it is 0.65, for maize it is 0.84, for sorghum it is 0.70. So do remember this. Now our other important statement is that the difference between incident photosynthetic radiation and power near the ground gives the intercepted power, means the amount that is being intercepted by power. This is intercepted power is basically I. Now this is a question that is being solved, this would not be asked, this is just for basic understanding. This is also for basic understanding. Now the important part is that from here, that at higher light intensity there would be increase in growth and rate by 3 to 4 folds in diameter accumulation compared to low light intensities. Means at high light intensity there would be increase in the diameter production by 3 to 4. This is just basic thing, this would not be asked. See, in case of yield and formation of yield, there are various critical periods that are being given in this paragraph. The important thing, just a basic thumb rule, you remember that all the critical stages of crops, that is irrigation stages of the crops, for example if you talk of wheat it is CRI, and in case of rice like panicle initiation stage and a flowering stage, boating stage, and in case of maize silking and tasseling. See, all these sensitive stage or critical stages are also sensitive towards the light intensities. Like for example in case of groundnut, pot filling stage is very important. The same is being mentioned over here, that lower and highlight intensity during any of these critical stages, may there be any crop. Like for example it would be if it has been asked that in which of the following stages lower light intensity would cause reduction in yield, may it be any crop, the most sensitive stages will be most affected. For example in case of rice, the panicalization state because of lower light intensity or higher light intensity would be most affected. Same is the case of wheat, CRI would be most affected. Same is the case with groundnut, the pegging stage and the pod bearing stage would be most affected. Likewise there are various crops, and same is being mentioned over here. Like low light intensity during the pod filling period causes higher yield loss of about 30% than other stages. Same in the case of cereals, that during flowering increases spikelet sterility because of lower light intensity. See, basically it is all mentioned what I have told you just now. If you just remember that the critical stages of the crop, you can skip all this. Now important thing is that groundnut is a crop that has a variable harvest index. Just remember that variable harvest index is of groundnut, while the most stable harvest index is of pearl millet. Now photoperiodic effect, basically the important part is that the duration of night is more important than the daylight for floral initiation. Alright, now photoperiodism. Photoperiodism is the effect of light on plant, means how on the variation in the day length affect the floral initiation of the plant is known as photoperiodism. Now most of the tropical crops, see tropical crops are examples are given like rice, sorghum, maize, all these are tropical crops. They are short day plants, mean they require a day length of about less than 10 hours for floral initiation, or they require a longer dark phase than light phases. Short day means they require a long duration of night, and vice versa in case of long day plants. Long day requires a long duration of day. Other important, very important, this is very important, that Cockelberg, that is Xanthium, it is a classical qualitative short day plant. There are two other terms like qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative and qualitative, the difference between qualitative and quantitative is that qualitative plants are those that would flower at a particular day length only, means they would be either short day or long day. Intermediate, if there is an intermediate day length, they would not flower. While in case of quantitative short day or long day plants, they can initiate flower even during long days, but the initiation would be delayed. Most of the tropical crops are quantitative short day plants. Alright, remember that they are quantitative in nature. Like we have just now rendered various tropical crops like rice, maize, sorghum. These are various tropical crops. Now you can skip all this. This is not important. This is also not important. This is table is also not important. This is not asked. Again, this is also not important. The important part is that the photothermal units. What is photothermal unit? The term photothermal unit was given by Natusen, NATSUN, and the important part is that the rice requires about 20 to 100 of photothermal units for high yield. This is very important, that rice requires how much amount of photothermal units. See, what is photothermal unit? It is basically we'll be covering this part in metrology. We'll have a separate video regarding metrology and we'll discuss in that. Now the influence of photoperiod on development, you can skip this. This is very basic thing. Significance of photoperiod on crop production, this is also not important, you can skip this. Now the important part starts from here. See, one important thing is that IR8 and Jaya, these the initial varieties that were released in India for rice. These were insensitive to photoperiod, means they were photo insensitive varieties. While majority of the varieties that are being released these days these are also photo insensitive. But during the period from Green Revolution to some of the recent years, like near about 2000 to 2002, majority of the wheat crop varieties were photoperiod sensitive. So there were means they could be grown in a particular region only. They were not diversified. But now the major focus on the breeder who develop varieties is that the crop can or the variety can be grown in any region and during any period of season. So therefore the major focus of the breeder is on developing a photo insensitive varieties. Now photosensitive varieties are those that are season bound. That means they would occur in a or can be grown in a particular season only. Like if it is a winter variety or a Rabi season variety, it would be grown in a particular Rabi season only. That means it is a photosensitive and can be grown in a particular season only. Now when so photosensitive varieties are season bound. This is very important. While photo insensitive varieties are period bound. That means their duration is almost same wherever you grow and in any season. So this is very important, that photosensitive varieties are season bound and photo insensitive varieties are period bound. This is not important, you can skip this. Now assimilation of nutrient, this is also not important. The important part is that there is a 14-fold increase in nitrate reductase level under light, means when there is a lighting conditions, there would be increase in nitrate reductase level than compared to the dark conditions. Now this is very important, the most confusing statement, that most frequently occurring non-structural carbohydrate in plants is sucrose. This is very important. There are two important words that are given. First is non-structural and other is most frequently. See, most frequently occurring non-structural carbohydrate is sucrose. Do not confuse with it starch, followed by fructose. Alright, and the important part is that fructose appear to be the most important storage carbohydrate prior to green filling, means before green filling fructose is most important carbohydrate, while after green filling sucrose is the most important carbohydrate. Now these about one paragraph of about utilization of solar energy. This is very important paragraph, and about one question is being can be asked from this part, and this is also very confusing. See, if you look at the statement that about total amount of solar radiation that is received, only 75% is absorbed by the crop canopy. Means, for example, if 100 say for example lux 100 lux of solar radiation is being reaching the earth, about 75%, that means 75 lux is being utilized by plants. All right, and the photosynthetic active radiation is only 40 to 45%. Means out of this 75 lux that is being absorbed by plants, only 45 to that means 40 to 45% is photosynthetic active radiation. Means out of total 100 lux that is being reaching earth, 75% is absorbed by plants, and out of this 75 that is being utilized by plant, only 40% or 30% is being utilized. If you calculate from this, it would be 75 by 40, it would be about 30%. That means out of this 75 lux, 30 lux is only photosynthetically active radiation. Now this is about the light intensity. Now talking about the plants have a general fixation of about fixation efficiency of 20% for CO2. Means they require light for CO2 fixation, and the efficiency of plants generally is 20%. That means out of this 30 lux, 20% can only be used for CO2 fixation. Alright, so if you calculate that, it would be about 6 lux. Means when the resources are in unlimited manner, plants can fix just about 6 plants just utilize 6 lux of solar radiation for fixing of carbon dioxide, and actually it is absorbing how many? 75 lux. So this much energy is being lost, and this is the condition when the resources are unlimited. Under practical situation, it is only about 1 to 2%. The same is being mentioned over here. Now the other important thing is that there are two kinds of crop, like sink limited crop and source limited crop. First, you remember the sink limited crops are rice and wheat. Now what are sink limited crops and source limited crops? For example, first let's talk about sink limited crops. For sink limited crops, as we have discussed, that rice and wheat are sink limited crops. In sink limited crops, there are a limited amount of, what we can say is that, storage organs. These are very limited amount of storage organs. So basically the period in which these storage organs would be developed would be most sensitive, because the source, that is basically leaves, they are unlimited, but the sink, that is fruit, seeds, these are really limited. So if moisture stress or any kind of stress is being observed during this period of storage sink formation, it would lead to great yield reduction. So therefore this is the most important stage in case of sink limited crops, for example rice and wheat, while vice versa is true for source limited crops. In source limited crops, they have a very limited amount of leaves, but the sink, that is the fruits and the seeds, are in numerous manner. So this stage, which is having a very limited amount of leaf formation stage, is would be very important. Now in case of sink limited crops, since the duration during which the seeds or the panicles, or you can say the storage structures would be formed, it would be the most sensitive one, and it occurs during mainly from panicle initiation to flowering. So this is very important. Talking about the conversion efficiency. See, basically conversion efficiency means amount of solar radiation that is being absorbed by the plant, and that to convert it into in various dry matter products like for example sucrose or carbohydrate. So basically in general the conversion efficiency ranges from 3700 to 4100 calorie per gram of dry matter. Means 3700 to 4100 of calorie is required for the production of 1 gram of dry matter. This is very important statement, you must remember this. After that, various factors that affect the utilization of solar energy. This is a very basic thing, that leaf area index and different parts like number of terraces, area of the leaf, etc. It affects the utilization of solar energy. Also a cloudy day or the various other climatic factors influence the use of solar radiation by the plants. After this, temperature. See, temperature is basically a measurement of relative degree of hotness or coldness. Alright. Now mean temperature, it is simple, that it is average of maximum and minimum. Talking about cardinal temperature, this is very important topic, that cardinal temperature. See, cardinal temperature is basically the maximum temperature, the optimum temperature and the minimum temperature. All this in a lump sum manner are known as cardinal temperature. Alright. Now talking about for most of the crops, they grow best between 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. This range is very important, very important, because it is most of the time it is very confusing, because if the questions are being asked that most of the crops grow between, option would be like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, or the options can also be like 30 to 40, and one of the options would be 15 to 30. So there are chances that you can mark 20 to 30 as well as 15 to 30. Generally students skip this because everyone knows that the room temperature is 25 degrees Celsius. So it's a bit confusing that either it is 20 or 30 or it is 15 to 30. The correct answer is 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. So to remember this part. After that, cool season crops. See, cool season crops are those that are grown generally in winter season, that is from November to February. In this, the important part is that the optimum temperature, that is also known as the average temperature, is 30 to 38, the maximum temperature is 30 to 38 degrees Celsius, and it is written over here that maximum temperature is 30 to 38 degrees Celsius, minimum temperature is 0 to 5 degrees Celsius, and the optimum temperature is 25 to 30. So you can see the gap, that is ranges from 0 to 5. After that, if you see, it is 25 to 30, and then it is 30 to 38. So there is no temperature range between, like if you see 15 to 20 or 10 to 20, 25, there is no range. It is 0 to 5, 25 to 30, and 30 to 38. This is minimum, optimum and maximum. Same is the case with warm season crops. Those crops that are grown in January summer are known as warm season crop, that is rice, sorghum. Basically these are kharif crops and these are rabi crops. Now warm season crops, this again temperature is very important. The maximum temperature in case of summer crops is 45 to 50 degrees Celsius. The minimum temperature is 15 to 20 degrees Celsius, and the optimum temperature is 30 to 38 degrees Celsius. So you can easily remember this, that the optimum temperature of warm season crops, it is the maximum temperature for cool season crops. And see the variation. The confusing part is that if question is asked like what is the maximum temperature or the optimum temperature for warm season crops, alright. So student might be confused that either it is 25 to 30, if options would be given like 25 to 30, 15 to 20, 30 to 38 and 45 to 50. So student might be confused between 25 to 30 and 30 to 38 degrees Celsius. So do remember this and the gap between this. See, it is from 0 to 5, 5 to 10 there is no range. After that it is 15 to 20, then 25 to, then 20 to 25 there is no range. After that it is 25 to 30, then 30 to 38, then after that it is 45 to 50. So do remember these ranges. After that, the influence of temperature on growth. This is very basic thing, that temperature has nearly effect on each and every biochemical process that occurs. Either it is growth or any other metabolic processes occur, and other physical processes and biochemical reactions like uptake of carbon dioxide, enzymatic activity. This is a very basic thing, that you talk of every aspect related to plants, temperature would have its role in it. After that, the various biochemical reactions. Now there is a term called question 10 or Q10. basically you might have read this in physics as well as chemistry, that the rate of reaction may double or even increase. Generally it doubles for every 10-degree rise in temperature. Means if there is a rise of temperature by 10 degrees Celsius, the rate of the reaction will become double. Alright, and this is only known as question 10. It was given by Blackman. Alright, now Q10 can be stated as a rate of reaction at T plus 10 degrees Celsius, means T is the initial temperature, and after increasing 10 degrees Celsius at the rate at after increasing 10 degrees Celsius and the initial rate of reaction. Now biochemical reactions are mediated by enzyme. This is basic thing. This is just the explanation of the above statement that is given. Now uptake of carbon dioxide, the important part is only this much, that the optimum temperature for net carbon dioxide uptake is 24 degrees Celsius in case of wheat and barley. Remember these two crops. After that, enzymatic activity not important, rate of photosynthesis again not important. This is very basic things and you can skip this. Also the development of photosynthetic infrastructures, this is also not important. This is also not important. See, this line is important, that in case of maize, so remember the crop maize, the leaf number means number of leaves, it increases approximately by 0.3 leaves per degree rise in soil temperature. Means if the soil temperature increases by 1 degree Celsius, it would lead to the increase in leaf numbers by 0.3 leaves per degree. Means if there is an increase of near about 3 degrees Celsius, it would increase one leaf. Now influence of growth of substance, this is basically the hormonal means the effect of temperature on various phytohormones like auxin, ghrelin, cytokinin and others. Basically it will temperature will increase at a particular level, so activity of all this will increase to a certain level. After that it would have no effect. Now yes, one important part is that gibberellic acid to some extent increases the growth and removes the inhibitory effect of higher temperature. Means if gibberellic acid is present, then the inhibitory effect that has the higher temperature has on plant, it can be minimized. Now dry matter production, this is not important, you can skip this. Again the influence of temperature on growth, this is also not important, you can skip this. Now this is also not important, again you can skip this. Now yield formation and yield, this is also not important, as well as if you will go through this you will find it very confusing, so you can skip this. After that this you can also be skipped, this is not important. Now pest, if there is an increase in temperature, the pest will also increase, though yield will increase, but enzymatic activities will also increase, but in accordance to that pest will also increase. This is what is being given, like the minimum temperature for Spodoptera development of larvae of Spodoptera in field conditions is about this much, and this much is relative humidity is necessary for development of larvae of Spodoptera. Now in the case of Maruca vitrata, it is also given. See, this is basically generally for understanding purpose. Once you go through this, you can skip all this. Same is the case with diseases too, you can skip this. Now growing degree days, this is very important term, growing degree days. The growing degree days term was given by Rumer, Rumer. See, so after that the important part is that growing degree day is also known as heat unit, and it is basically a relationship between growth duration and temperature. See, the very important line is that first of all it is a relationship between growth duration and temperature. The other important thing is that it assumes a direct and a linear relationship between growth and temperature. Means according to growing degree days, there is a direct effect of what we can say is there's heat unit on growth and a linear relationship of temperature. Now it can be expressed in terms of base temperature and mean temperature. See, this is the mean temperature and TB stands for base temperature. Now see, what is base temperature is basically lowest temperature at which there is no growth, or below which there is no growth of plants occurs. There are in this table the base temperature of various crops is being mentioned, and this is very important table. For rice it is 10, and for wheat it is 4.5, for maize it is 10, for pearl millet it is 10. Sometimes a question is being asked, like in case of rice, that the base temperature of rises, options would be given like 8 to 10 degrees Celsius, 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, 12 to 14 degrees Celsius, or 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. So the answer in this case would be 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, because below 10 no growth would occur, so the answer cannot be 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. Answer would be 10 to 12. Again, the important part is that the degree day concept lacks theoretical soundness, because it has certain limitations, as it assumes a linear relationship between temperature and development, while the actual relationship is convenient. And this is very important, because we have discussed like the relationship is direct and linear with growth and temperature, but actually this is not correct. The correct relationship is curvilinear, and other important things are also given. These are not important. The important part was this only. After that, photothermal unit, PTU, it is rated basically with the day length of night and day. The PTU can be calculated by multiplying growing degree days with the length of day and night, depending upon the short day and the long day crops. For example, in case of short day crops, the degree days is being multiplied with the length of night, while in case of long day it is multiplied with the length of long day. This is very important. After that, extreme temperature may be high temperature extreme or lower temperature extreme. Excess or deficit of any growth factor is called stress. This is basic thing. Now the other important thing is mineral nutrition. This is not important. What is it is important is not in this manner that I'm saying it is not important in manner that the question from this part would not be asked in the competitive exam. For basic understanding, you have to go through it once. If you are a beginner and haven't read ready even once, then you must go through this, as it would help you to develop your basic understandings. After this, you can skip this. This can also be skipped. This is not important. After that, photosynthesis. See, if you have read photosynthesis, you have to read it, not read, you have to read it in crop physiology part, so you can skip from here. The important part is that yellow syndrome, basically if there is a sudden fall of temperature by more than 4 degrees Celsius, then plant become chlorotic, and root becomes pale and less active. This type of behavior was seen in case of wheat and rice. This is known as yellow syndrome. This is very important, and it was observed first time in rice in region of Tamil Nadu. After that, water transport, this is not important. Now vegetative growth, this is not important. Important part is this only, that the optimum temperature for vegetative, reproductive and green development stage of wheat are 10, 18 and 20 degrees Celsius respectively. Do remember this, that for vegetative it is 10, for reproductive it is 18, and for green development it is 20. Same likewise in the case of rice, for tillering it is 31 degrees Celsius, for flowering it is 30, and for ripening it is 20. See, question has not been asked from this part, but this is very important, and in any year question can be asked, so one must remember this part. Now after this you can skip this. This is not important. After that, rainfall. See, rainfall is very important, and either you talk of the second chapter of climate or any other chapter, rainfall is a very important part. One thing is important, that a day is said to be rainy if the precipitation is how much. If one knows, then good. If not known, then you must know this. Would not be telling this because this is very basic thing. If you know this, then do comment it. If you don't, then also comment that you don't know it. We'll cover this in next video. See, if you don't know that which day is known as rainy day, then you really need to brush up your basic understandings. Now rainfall climatology, this is not important, you can skip this. Amount of rainfall, this you can also skip this. After that, Anandpur rainfall, you can skip this. Decennial rainfall, just remember that what is a decennial rainfall. It is the mean of total rainfall received during the past 10 years. You can decennial means 10, and remember that it is the mean. Alright, you can skip all this. This is not important. Intensity can also be skipped. Distribution can also be skipped. This can also be skipped because it is specifically given for Hyderabad and Chodapur. This is not important. this can also be skipped. Now monthly rain, this can also be skipped. This is important line, that a dry spell of more than 10 to 14 days for alphisols and about 15 to 20 days for vertisols is critical for crops. Means if there is a dry period for more than 10 to 14 days in case of alphisols, means red soils, and in case of black soils or vertisols, if there is a dry spell of more than 15 to 20 days, then it is said to be critical for crop growth. Now rainfall analysis for drought prone input is taken an example. It is basically an example. Now if you want to go through it, you can go through it, but it is not important, you can skip this. After that we have rainy day. See, it is given that the question that I asked. See, this is very basic thing, therefore I did not answer it, because these are some of the questions like everyone must know. If you are preparing for agronomy, one must know that which day is known as a rainy day. It has been mentioned that if the rainfall is more than 25 mm, it is particularly known as a rainy day. This is very important. See, question can also be asked in a manner like a day is said to be rainy when the rainfall is option A more than 2.5 mm, or more than or equal to 2.5 mm, less than 2.5 mm. Basically I want like to clear this part, that it should always be greater than 2.5 mm. It should not be 2.5 mm. I would like to repeat it again, that a rainy day is when it has more than 2.5 mm. If the options are given like more than or equal to 2.5 mm, the answer would not be correct. Now onset of monsoon, this is very basic thing, you can skip all this. This table can also be skipped. Now reoccurrence of the event, this can also be skipped, this is not important. After that, dependability of the rainfall, this is very important line, that the dependability of rainfall can be estimated by 75% probability of rainfall by coefficient of variation. Means the dependability of rainfall is predicted by 70, but means during the calculation of this rainfall with coefficient of variation, the probability must be about 75%. Now again you can skip this part, this is just for basic understanding. Now coefficient of variation. See, coefficient of variation, you might have read this part in statistics. If you have not read it, no issue, we'll cover it in statistics video. Basically you just remember that coefficient of variation can be calculated by standard deviation divided by mean. In simpler terms, you can understand that, for example, if there is a coefficient of variation is higher, then the rainfall will be lower. This is the basic thing. Now after the length of growing season, basically length of growing season is duration for which a crop is being grown, or during which a crop can be grown. Basically in dry farming regions, the length of growing period would be short, and in the case of irrigated farming, the length of growing season would be higher. It is a basic thing. See, nutrient management is basically how rainfall has effect on nutrient management. Just remember that poor rainfall, if there is a lower amount of rainfall, then lower dose of nitrogen and phosphorus should be given in case of maize. Just remember this. Otherwise, if you want to have a basic understanding, you can go through this. Same is the case with wheat management. If the rainfall will be low, the crop production will be low, and the wheat species diversity will also be low. Wheat will be high, but the diversity of species will be low. Insect pest management, if there is a high rainfall and high humidity, then insect pest would increase. This is very basic thing. Again, disease management, if conditions like high rainfall and high humidity combined with high temperature exist, then basically all the disease will proliferate. So this is what is being given. Now lodging is basically it is falling off of the plants. Either basically it is due to high rainfall, it can also be because of high wind speeds. Other term that is also confusing is lodging, Logging. See, when it is lodging, Logging, it is basically dealing with the nutrient part of the crop. When it is lodging, it basically means falling off of plants because of high wind speeds. So data is being given like if the wind speed is more than 25 kilometer per hour, then it would if it is added with a high amount of rainfall, then lodging would occur. Simply, if the wind speed is more than 25 kilometer per hour and with a high rainfall, then lodging will occur. And if it increases to more than 50 kilometer per hour, then if there is rainfall or not, it would surely lead to lodging. The other important thing is that a 1 ton per hectare decline in yield occurs for 10% increase in average area that is lost. Means if 1 ton per hectare if there is a 10% lodging of the crop, then it would decline the yield by 1 ton per hectare. Now produce quality, this is not important, you can skip this part. Relative humidity, relative humidity directly influence the water relationship of the plant, and this is very basic thing and everyone knows it. After that, leaf growth, photosynthesis. See, this is very important line. See, relative humidity has a direct effect on growth of the plant, while photosynthesis has a indirect effect with relative humidity. This is very important, that photosynthesis is not directly affected with relative humidity. The other important part is the radiation use efficiency of maize decreases if the vapor pressure deficit increases from 0.7 to 0.9 to 1.7 kilopascals. This is not much important, but you must remember this. After that, pollination, this is, you can skip, this is not important. After that, pest, this is also not important, you can skip this part. Again, diseases, you can skip this part. It is basically that how relative humidity, temperature, etc. affect the disease, and this is very basic thing, that if relative humidity and rainfall increases, then the disease incidence and proliferation of diseases would occur. Sorry, it is upward, not downward, it would increase. The more the relative humidity, more is the contingency of diseases. Now grain yield is very high or very low relative humidity is not conductive for grain yield. Basically any parameter, you talk of rainfall, relative humidity, if it is very high or very low, it would not be in a beneficial manner for grain yields. Now relative humidity is negatively correlated with grain yield of maize. Mean more is the relative humidity, lesser would be the yield of maize. Now wind. See, the important part is that the lodging that we have discussed earlier. Other important thing is nothing. See, if it would be hot dry winds, it would lead to reduction in plant height, it would lead to closing of stomata, it would decrease photosynthesis and various other things. The plant will move towards such mechanism in which they would like to conserve water. This is a very basic thing that everyone knows. The important part is that the net assimilation rate and relative growth rate, these are the indices of growth. Basically these two, that net assimilation rate and there are other also, we'll discuss in the next video. Just next chapter is related to that only, growth and development. What in this chapter is important is that the net assimilation rate and relative growth rate, these indices of growth, they increase with increase in wind speed. Don't remember this, that speed, but remember that the increases with increase in wind speed. This is important. And here ends up the chapter. If you find the video useful, then share it with your friends as well as batchmates. Thank you.